Margaret was the kind of woman who wore her heart on her sleeve. At 58, she had a warm smile, silver-streaked hair she wore in a loose bun, and a laugh that could light up a room. She'd raised her only son, David, with every ounce of love she had. David, now 35, was her pride and joy, a handsome, hard-working lawyer who'd moved back to Raleigh after law school to be closer to his mom. Margaret's life revolved around her family, her garden, and her little ritual of sipping chamomile tea on her porch every evening, scrolling through emails from friends and family. Those emails? They were her lifeline. Notes from her book club, updates from her sister in Charleston, and sweet messages from David and his wife, Claire, who lived just a few streets away. Claire. Oh, Claire. She was 32, with sharp cheekbones, a sleek blonde bob, and an Instagram feed that screamed perfection. She was the kind of woman who always seemed to have it together: yoga classes, organic smoothies, and a knack for throwing Pinterest-worthy dinner parties. When David brought Claire home 5 years ago, Margaret was over the moon. "She's like the daughter I never had," Margaret would gush to her friends at the knitting circle. Claire would drop by with homemade cookies, call Margaret Mom, and even helped her set up her new smartphone. To Margaret, Claire was family, someone she trusted completely. But here's where the story takes a turn, ladies. You know that feeling when something feels just a little off? Like a shadow passing over the sun? That's what Margaret started to notice about 6 months ago. It was subtle at first. Claire's visits became less frequent. Her texts got shorter, colder. When Margaret invited her over for Sunday brunch, Claire would make excuses: work, errands, a headache. David, too, seemed distracted, always rushing off to meetings or staying late at the office. Margaret brushed it off. They're busy, she told herself. Young couples have their own lives. But then, the emails stopped. Margaret's inbox, once a treasure trove of love and connection, started to feel like a ghost town. At first, she thought it was a glitch. She'd check her phone, refresh the app, even restart the router. But days turned into weeks, and the silence grew louder. No updates from her sister. No book club reminders. Not even a forwarded joke from her cousin in Florida. Her heart sank. Did I do something wrong, she wondered, her fingers trembling as she typed out a message to David: "Sweetie, is everything okay? I haven't heard from you or Claire in a while." No reply. Now, I know what you're thinking, maybe it's just a misunderstanding, right? That's what Margaret thought, too. But let me tell you, something much darker was at play. And if you're as hooked as I am right now, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to keep the suspense rolling. One rainy afternoon, Margaret decided to take matters into her own hands. She drove to David and Claire's house, her wipers slapping against the windshield as her heart pounded. She hadn't seen them in weeks, and the silence was eating her alive. When she pulled into their driveway, she noticed something odd. Claire's car was there, but David's wasn't. Strange, since David usually worked from home on Thursdays. Margaret knocked on the door, her umbrella dripping onto the welcome mat. Claire answered, looking flustered. "Oh, Margaret. What a surprise." Her smile was tight, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. "Is David here?" Margaret asked, peering past her. The house was eerily quiet. "He's at the office," Claire said quickly. Too quickly. "Late meeting. You know how it is." Margaret nodded, but something in Claire's eyes, a flicker of guilt, maybe, made her stomach twist. "I've been worried," Margaret said, her voice soft but firm. "My emails, they've been disappearing. I haven't heard from anyone. Not even you." Claire's face froze for a split second before she laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "Oh, Mom, you're probably just not used to that new phone yet. Tech can be so tricky, right? Why don't I come over tomorrow and take a look? Margaret wanted to believe her. She did believe her. After all, Claire was family. But as she drove home through the rain, a nagging voice in her head whispered, "Something's not right." That night, Margaret couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, her laptop glowing in the dark, trying to figure out what was going on. She logged into her email account, her fingers clumsy on the keys. That's when she saw it. Her inbox wasn't just empty, it was wiped. Years of messages, memories, love letters from her late husband, David's childhood notes, gone. Deleted. Her heart stopped. "No," she whispered, clicking frantically. "No, no, no." She checked the trash folder, the archives, even the spam. Nothing. It was as if her entire digital life had been erased. And then, buried deep in the settings, she found something that made her blood run cold. Her email account had been accessed from an unfamiliar device, a device that wasn't hers. The login was from an IP address in Raleigh. From a location just a few streets away. Claire's house. Margaret's hands shook as she stared at the screen. Why would Claire do this? What was she hiding? And more importantly, what else had she done? Oh, ladies, we're just getting started. This story's about to get wild, so make sure you're subscribed and give this video a like to stay in the loop. Who do you think Claire's trying to hide from Margaret? Drop your guesses in the comments below. I read every single one. Let's keep going. Margaret didn't confront Claire right away. She was too shocked, too hurt. Instead, she started paying closer attention. She noticed things she'd overlooked before, Claire's new designer handbags, the way she'd whisper into her phone and hang up when Margaret walked into the room, the way David avoided his mother's gaze at family dinners. It was like a puzzle coming together, piece by piece, and Margaret didn't like the picture it was forming. One evening, while Claire was out of town for a work conference, Margaret decided to do some digging. She'd never been the snooping type, but desperation does funny things to a person. She still had a spare key to David and Claire's house. Claire had given it to her years ago, just in case. With her heart pounding, Margaret let herself in. The house was pristine, as always. Too pristine. Like a stage set for a play. Margaret tiptoed through the living room, her eyes scanning for anything out of place. She didn't know what she was looking for, maybe a clue, maybe nothing. But then she saw it, Claire's laptop, left open on the kitchen counter. Margaret hesitated. This wasn't her. She wasn't a sneak. But the memory of her empty inbox, the betrayal of those deleted emails, pushed her forward. She sat down, her hands trembling as she touched the trackpad. The screen lit up, and there it was, Claire's email account, still logged in. What she found next would change everything. Margaret's fingers hovered over the trackpad. She wasn't tech-savvy, but she knew enough to navigate an email inbox. She scrolled through Claire's messages, her eyes scanning for anything suspicious. At first, it was just the usual stuff, work emails, online shopping receipts, a reminder about a yoga class. But then, buried in a folder labeled personal, she saw something that made her breath catch, a thread of emails between Claire and someone named Jay. The subject line was blank. Margaret clicked, her stomach twisting. The first email, dated 3 months ago, was short but chilling. Meet me at the usual spot. Don't tell D.J. Margaret's eyes widened. D? David? She kept reading, her hands trembling. The emails were cryptic but damning. Claire's replies were flirty, secretive. Can't wait to see you. He's clueless as always. I'll make an excuse. Dinner at 7? Margaret felt like she'd been punched in the gut. Was Claire cheating on David? Her sweet, hard-working son, who'd given Claire everything? She scrolled faster, her heart racing. The emails painted a picture of secret meetings, late-night phone calls, and promises to keep it quiet. But that wasn't the worst part. Oh no, ladies, it gets so much darker. One email, dated just last week, made Margaret's blood run cold. I took care of M's emails. She won't suspect a thing. We're in the clear. C. The reply from J was simple, good. Keep her out of it. We don't need her meddling. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. M, that's me. Claire had deliberately deleted her emails. But why? What was she hiding that was so big she needed to erase Margaret's entire digital life? Margaret's mind raced, piecing it together. The cold texts, the missed brunches, David's distance, it wasn't just an affair. Claire was covering something up, something big, and she was using Margaret's trust to do it. Margaret was about to close the laptop when she noticed another folder, Archive. Her curiosity got the better of her. She clicked, and there, like a digital dagger to the heart, were her own emails, hundreds of them, forwarded to Claire's account before being deleted from Margaret's. Birthday wishes from David, love letters from her late husband, even silly chain emails from her knitting circle. Claire had stolen them, read them, and then wiped them from existence. Why? Margaret whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Why would you do this to me? She kept digging, her anger growing with every click. In the same folder, she found a subfolder labeled Docs. Inside were screenshots of bank statements, credit card bills, and, most shockingly, a draft of a legal document. It was a power of attorney form, with David's name listed as the signee and Margaret's name as the incapacitated party. The document was incomplete, but the intent was clear. Someone was trying to gain control of Margaret's finances, her house, her life. Margaret's knees buckled. She gripped the counter to steady herself. Claire wasn't just cheating, she was plotting something far worse. Was David in on it? The thought made Margaret's chest ache. Her son, her baby boy, wouldn't do this, would he? She needed answers. She copied the emails onto a USB drive she found in her purse, thank goodness she'd brought it for her book club files, and slipped out of the house, her mind a whirlwind of hurt and suspicion. As she drove home, the rain pelting her windshield, she couldn't shake the image of Claire's cold smile. That woman had called her mom, baked her cookies, and all the while, she was scheming. Back at home, Margaret poured herself a glass of wine and sat at her kitchen table, the USB drive burning a hole in her pocket. She called her sister, Ellen, in Charleston, her hands still shaking. Ellen, something's wrong, she said, her voice breaking. Claire's been deleting my emails. I found proof. Anne. I think she's having an affair. Maybe worse. Ellen, always the practical one, didn't miss a beat. Margaret, slow down. What do you mean, worse? Margaret explained everything, the emails, the mysterious J, the power of attorney document. Ellen was silent for a long moment before she said, you need to talk to David. Now. But be careful. If Claire's hiding something this big, she's not going to like being caught. Margaret nodded, even though Ellen couldn't see her. I know. But I can't confront her yet. I need to know if David's involved. The next day, Margaret invited David over for coffee. She didn't tell him about the emails or the laptop. She wanted to see his face, hear his voice, look into his eyes. When he arrived, he looked tired, his suit rumpled, his smile forced. Hey, Mom, he said, kissing her cheek. Sorry I've been so busy. Work's been crazy. Margaret poured him a coffee, her hand steady despite the storm inside her. David, honey, is everything okay with you and Claire? He froze, just for a second, but it was enough. Yeah, why? We're fine. His voice was too quick, too defensive. Margaret's heart sank. She pressed further, keeping her tone gentle. It's just, you've both been so distant lately. And my emails, they're all gone. I thought maybe Claire mentioned something. David's face paled. Your emails? Gone? That's weird. Maybe it's a tech thing. Claire's good with that stuff. I'll ask her to check. Margaret watched him closely. Was he lying? Or was he just as clueless as she'd been? She decided to test him. David, I found something odd. My email account was accessed from your house. Any idea why? His eyes widened, and for a moment, he looked genuinely confused. From our house? No, I don't know, Mom. I'll talk to Claire. Margaret nodded, but her mind was racing. David didn't seem to know about the emails, but he was hiding something. She could feel it. After he left, she called Ellen again. He's not telling me everything, Margaret said. I don't think he knows about the emails, but he's covering for Claire. I need to find out who this Jay is. Ellen sighed. Margaret, you're playing detective now. Be careful. If Claire's capable of this, who knows what else she's up to? Over the next few days, Margaret turned into someone she barely recognized. She started following Claire, discreetly, of course. She'd drive by their house, park down the street, watch from a distance. One evening, she saw Claire leave in a sleek black car that wasn't hers. Margaret followed, her heart pounding. The car pulled into a dimly lit restaurant downtown, and Claire stepped out, dressed to the nines. A man was waiting, tall, dark-haired, maybe in his 40s. They embraced, and Margaret's stomach churned. She snapped a photo with her phone, her hands shaking. That had to be Jay. But who was he? And what did he want with Claire and with Margaret's life? The next morning, Margaret did something she never thought she'd do. She hired a private investigator. Her name was Rita, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd seen it all. Margaret handed over the USB drive and the photo. I need to know who this man is, Margaret said. And what Claire's planning. Rita nodded, her eyes sharp. I'll get you answers, Margaret. But brace yourself. People don't go to these lengths for nothing. Days later, Rita called with news that made Margaret's world crumble. The man was Jonathan Hart, a financial advisor with a shady reputation. He and Claire had been meeting for months, and Rita had uncovered something else. Claire had been transferring money from David's accounts, small amounts at first, then larger ones. And the power of attorney document? It was part of a plan to declare Margaret incompetent so Claire could access her savings, her house, everything. Margaret's first instinct was to cry, to let the tears fall until there were none left. She'd trusted Claire, welcomed her into the family, even called her my girl. And David, her sweet David, was he part of this? The thought made her chest ache. She replayed their last conversation, his nervous glances, his vague excuses. Was he a victim of Claire's lies, or was he complicit? The uncertainty was almost worse than the betrayal itself. She called her sister, Ellen, again, her voice barely above a whisper. Ellen, it's worse than I thought. Claire's not just cheating, she's trying to take everything. My savings, my house, even my dignity. And I don't know if David's in on it. Ellen's voice crackled through the phone, steady but furious. Margaret, you listen to me. You're stronger than this. You raised David on your own after Tom passed. You survived that, and you'll survive this. But you can't let Claire get away with it. I don't even know where to start, Margaret admitted, wiping her eyes. I feel so helpless. You're not helpless, Ellen said firmly. You've got proof. You've got that USB drive. And you've got me. We're gonna figure this out together. Margaret took a deep breath, Ellen's words igniting a spark of resolve. She wasn't helpless. She was Margaret and Thompson, a woman who'd faced loss and come out stronger. Claire had underestimated her, and that was her first mistake. Over the next few days, Margaret's emotions swung like a pendulum, grief, anger, fear, and back again. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, clutching her pillow, replaying every moment with Claire. The cookies they'd baked together, the Mother's Day cards Claire had signed "Love, your daughter." Had it all been a lie? She'd sit on her porch, staring at the stars, wondering how she'd missed the signs. But the more she thought, the clearer it became. Claire's plan wasn't just about money. It was about control, about erasing Margaret's voice, her connections, her legacy. One morning, while sipping her coffee, Margaret made a decision. She wasn't going to confront Claire, not yet. Confrontation would tip her hand, and Claire was too cunning to crumble under pressure. No, Margaret needed to be smarter, sharper. She needed a plan. And for that, she turned to Rita, the private investigator, who'd become her unlikely ally. Rita met Margaret at a quiet cafe downtown, away from prying eyes. The older woman slid into the booth, her gray ponytail swinging as she leaned forward. "All right, Margaret, I've got more dirt on Claire and Jonathan. You ready for this?" Margaret nodded, her jaw tight. "Tell me everything." Rita pulled out a folder. "Jonathan Hart's not just a financial advisor, he's got a history of fraud. Small-time stuff, mostly, but he's slippery. He's been cozying up to Claire for over a year, and they've been siphoning money from David's accounts. Looks like Claire's been forging his signature on some transfers." Margaret's heart sank. "David doesn't know?" Rita shook her head. "From what I can tell, your son's in the dark. Claire's been playing him like a fiddle, telling him the accounts are underperforming or tied up in investments. But here's the kicker, that power of attorney document? It's not just about you. They're planning to use it to lock David out of his own finances, too." Margaret's hands clenched into fists. "They're trying to ruin us both." "Pretty much," Rita said, her voice grim. "But you've got an advantage. They don't know you're onto them. That gives you time to plan." Margaret leaned back, her mind racing. "I want them to pay Rita. Not just for the money, but for what they've done to me. To my family." Rita's eyes gleamed. "Then let's get creative. You want revenge? We'll make sure it's served cold and clever." That night, Margaret sat at her kitchen table, a notebook in front of her. She wasn't a vengeful person by nature, but Claire had crossed a line. Margaret started jotting down ideas, her pen moving faster with each thought. She wanted Claire to feel the same betrayal, the same loss of control. But she also wanted to protect David, if he was truly innocent, and expose Jonathan for the snake he was. Her first idea was to hit Claire where it hurt most, her perfect image. Claire thrived on her polished persona, her Instagram followers, her socialite friends, her reputation as the ideal wife. What if that image crumbled? Margaret thought about leaking the affair to Claire's social circle, but that felt too small, too petty. No, she needed something bigger, something that would unravel Claire's carefully constructed world. Then it hit her, Claire's digital life. Just as Claire had decluttered Margaret's emails, Margaret could turn the tables. She wasn't tech-savvy, but she knew someone who was, her nephew, Ethan, a 25-year-old IT whiz who'd always adored his Aunt Maggie. She called him the next day. "Ethan, I need your help," she said, keeping her voice steady. "It's about Claire. She's done something awful. I need to know how to access someone's online accounts without them knowing." Ethan hesitated. "Aunt Maggie, that sounds serious. Are you sure you're okay? I'm sure, she said. I'll explain everything when you get here. Just trust me. Ethan arrived the next evening, his laptop bag slung over his shoulder. Margaret showed him the USB drive and told him everything, minus the revenge part. She didn't want to drag him too deep into her plans. Ethan's eyes widened as he scrolled through the emails. She deleted your entire inbox? Wow. That's low, he said. Okay, I can help you figure out what she's been doing online. But, Aunt Maggie, you've gotta be careful. Hacking's a gray area. I'm not hacking, Margaret said, her voice firm. I'm taking back what's mine. Ethan showed her how to trace Claire's digital footprint, her social media, her cloud storage, even her banking apps. He set up a secure system on Margaret's laptop, teaching her how to monitor Claire's activity without leaving a trace. If she's using the same passwords or devices, you can see a lot, he said. But don't do anything crazy, okay? Margaret smiled, but inside, her resolve hardened. Crazy? No. Calculated? Absolutely. Over the next week, Margaret became a digital detective. She discovered Claire's secret email accounts, her private Instagram DMs with Jonathan, even a hidden folder of photos from their business trips. Each revelation fueled her anger, but it also sharpened her focus. She wasn't just going to expose Claire, she was going to dismantle her world, piece by piece. Her plan started to take shape. Step 1. Gather more evidence. Margaret used Ethan's tools to download Claire's communications with Jonathan, including texts she backed up to the cloud. Step 2. Plant seeds of doubt. Margaret began dropping subtle hints to David, small comments about Claire's late nights, her new jewelry, her work conferences. She didn't accuse outright, she just let the questions linger, watching David's unease grow. Step 3 was the big one, a public takedown. Margaret knew Claire was hosting a charity gala in 2 weeks, a big event for Raleigh's elite, where Claire would be the belle of the ball. It was the perfect stage. Margaret started sketching out a way to expose Claire's affair and financial schemes in front of everyone, but she needed to be careful. If she moved too fast, Claire might catch on. If she waited too long, Claire might finalize that power of attorney and leave Margaret with nothing. One night, as Margaret was finalizing her plan, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. Hey, Mom. Been too long. Want to grab brunch this weekend? Margaret stared at the message, her blood boiling. The nerve of that woman, acting like nothing was wrong. She typed back, keeping her tone sweet, sounds lovely, Claire. Sunday at 11? Margaret's plan was meticulous, built on 3 pillars: expose Claire's lies, protect David, and ensure Jonathan faced consequences. She'd spent days coordinating with her nephew, Ethan, the IT whiz, and Rita, the private investigator, to make sure every detail was perfect. But first, she had to get through brunch with Claire, scheduled for tomorrow morning, after the gala. Margaret knew it was a trap. Claire's sudden "let's reconnect" text was too convenient, likely a way to gauge if Margaret suspected anything. Margaret would play along, keep her cards close, and strike when Claire least expected it. The gala was held at the Raleigh Country Club, a glittering affair with chandeliers, live music, and tables draped in white linen. Claire, as the event's organizer, floated through the crowd in a sleek red dress, her blonde bob gleaming under the lights. She was in her element, charming donors and posing for photos. Margaret, dressed in a modest but elegant navy gown, watched from the edge of the room, her heart pounding. She'd arrived early, slipping into the venue's AV room with Ethan's help. He'd hacked into the gala's presentation system, nothing too illegal, just enough to cue up a special surprise during Claire's keynote speech. Margaret's stomach twisted as she spotted David across the room. He looked handsome in his tux, but his eyes were tired, his smile forced. She'd planted enough seeds of doubt, subtle questions about Claire's late nights and spending, that he seemed uneasy. Margaret prayed he wasn't in on Claire's scheme. Tonight, she'd find out. As the evening progressed, Claire took the stage, her voice smooth as she thanked the donors and gushed about the charity's mission. "This cause is so close to my heart," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Family, community, trust, these are the values we hold dear." Margaret's lips twitched. Trust. The irony was almost too much. She glanced at Ethan, who was tucked away in a corner, his laptop ready. He gave her a nod. It was time. Just as Claire clicked to the next slide in her presentation, a photo of smiling children, the screen flickered. The audience murmured, confused, as the image changed to a screenshot of an email. Claire's email. To Jonathan. The words were unmistakable. "M's emails are gone. She's out of the way. When do we move on the accounts?" See. The room went silent. Claire froze, her smile faltering. Just a technical glitch," she stammered, clicking frantically. But the slides kept coming, more emails, texts, even a photo of Claire and Jonathan at a hotel, their arms around each other. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Margaret watched as Claire's face turned ashen, her eyes darting to David, who stood near the front, his jaw clenched. "Ladies and gentlemen," Margaret's voice rang out, calm but firm, as she stepped onto the stage. She'd planned this moment, rehearsed it in her mind. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something you need to know about the woman leading this event." Claire's eyes widened in panic. "Margaret, what are you doing? This isn't..." "Oh, it's very much the time," Margaret said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "For years, I trusted Claire like a daughter. But she's been lying, to me, to my son, to all of you." She turned to the screen, where Ethan had queued up the power of attorney document. "This is Claire's plan to declare me incompetent and take control of my finances. She's been stealing from my son, David, too, with the help of Jonathan Hart, a known fraudster." The crowd erupted in whispers. David stepped forward, his face a mix of shock and anger. "Mom, is this true?" Margaret's heart ached at the pain in his voice. "I'm so sorry, David. I didn't want to believe it either." Claire lunged for the microphone, her voice shrill. "This is a lie. She's confused, delusional. She's been struggling with her memory." "Enough." David's voice cut through the room, silencing Claire. He turned to Margaret, his eyes searching hers. "Show me everything." Margaret nodded to Ethan, who played a recorded conversation, captured by Rita's surveillance, of Claire and Jonathan discussing their plan to drain David's accounts and frame Margaret as unfit. The audience was stunned, some clutching their pearls, others whispering furiously. Claire's friends, the socialites she'd worked so hard to impress, turned away, their faces cold. Claire's composure shattered. "David, you don't understand. I was protecting us. The firm was failing, we needed..." "Stop," David said, his voice low but lethal. "You used me. You used my mother." He turned to the crowd. "I'm so sorry, everyone. I had no idea." Margaret's heart broke for her son, but she wasn't done. She'd planned one final blow. Ethan switched the screen to a live feed of Jonathan Hart, who'd been lured to a nearby hotel under the pretense of meeting Claire. Rita had tipped off the police, who were waiting. As the crowd watched, officers approached Jonathan, handcuffs gleaming. "Jonathan Hart, you're under arrest for fraud and conspiracy," an officer said, his voice clear through the feed. The room exploded in chaos. Claire tried to run, but security blocked the exits. Margaret stepped closer, her voice low so only Claire could hear. You thought you could erase me, Claire. But I'm not so easy to delete. Oh, ladies, isn't this wild? If you're loving this drama, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment, what do you think of Margaret's takedown? We're not done yet, so let's keep going. Claire was escorted out by security, her red dress a stark contrast to her pale, defeated face. Margaret felt a pang of guilt, not for Claire, but for the family she'd thought they were. She turned to David, who was standing alone, his shoulders slumped. Mom, I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have seen it. Margaret hugged him tightly. You couldn't have known, sweetheart. She fooled us all.